When former President Donald Trump tweets about your affair more than 10 times, there is almost no way to avoid the judgment that comes with what you've done. There was a time when she was labeled the most hated actress in Hollywood because of Kristen Stewart's very public breakup with her ex, Robert Pattinson. From betraying the love of her life to self-sabotaging herself and her career, the actress finally opened up about the dark time in her life and the crippling anxiety she had to battle since she was a young girl. We've always got the juicy scoops for you, so remember to subscribe to Rumour Juice and hit that notification bell not to miss all the latest celebrity stories.
Rob is a really good guy too. I think Rob considers things a little bit more. I think he drives himself a little bit crazier, as well as I do.
When the news of Kristen's breakup with Robert Pattinson made headlines in 2012, for a moment the whole world stopped. What made it worse was the reason why the couple split. The actress had been caught cheating on her then-boyfriend with director Rupert Sanders. And when the photograph surfaced of the two canoodling together in a car, Twilight fans were enraged. Kristen was branded as a Scarlet Woman, and it seemed like there was no coming back. In fact, it was one of the biggest scandals of that year. Even former President Donald Trump had an opinion about the affair and tweeted, "Robert Pattinson should not take back Kristen Stewart. She cheated on him like a dog and will do it again. Just watch. He can do much better." Kristen's reputation was dragged through the mud. With the upcoming release of the final installment of the Twilight films, the affair outraged fans. Robert and Kristen were supposed to be the real-life Bella and Edward. How were fans supposed to watch the final movie without thinking about the fact that Kristen had cheated on the man she loved? During all this time, no one took a moment to think about how the actress must have been feeling back then. Everyone was concerned about Rob, who was undoubtedly heartbroken by the affair, and fans felt terrible for him. But what about Kristen? What had driven her to betray him in a way that was so shocking in public? With the scarlet letter practically stamped onto her forehead by the public, it seemed like no one was even willing to hear what she had to say. Let's not forget that Sanders was married with children, and he had also betrayed his wife, Liberty Ross. He made a public apology stating, "I am utterly distraught about the pain I have caused my family. My beautiful wife and heavenly children are all I have in this world. I love them with all my heart. I am praying that we can get through this together." At the time, Sanders was directing Snow White and the Huntsman, which is how he and Kristen had met. His wife Liberty was also featured in the film in the role of Stewart's mother, Queen Eleanor, so fans can only imagine how furious Liberty must have felt when she found out that her husband had an affair with a fellow cast member who was also 19 years his junior. Tensions were high amongst everyone. Both the final Twilight installment and Snow White and the Huntsman were due to release, and with the affair between Stewart and Sanders plastered all over the tabloids, there was no dodging the bullet of judgment and assumptions. Despite Sanders being a married man, it seemed like all the anger was directed at Kristen since her relationship with Rob had been made a public spectacle because of the Twilight films. People wanted me and Rob to be together so badly that a relationship was made into a product. It wasn't real life anymore, and that was gross to me, Kristen later admitted. When rumors had started to circulate that perhaps her relationship with Pattinson had all been a publicity stunt, she firmly shut them down. Rob had been Kristen's first real love, and their chemistry had been instant from the first moment they met during a test reading for the first Twilight film. "There was nothing I could do," she admitted, and fell head over heels in love with him. Even confessed that if Rob had proposed to her, she would have said yes. "Yeah, I was super in love with my high school boyfriend. Super f***ing in love with him. But me and Rob were a little older, and it was just gagung." They had been together while filming all 5 parts of the saga, but did their best to keep their relationship as private as they could, despite the massive publicity they were both receiving during that time. She confessed that even when they walked down the street together, they couldn't even hold hands because they didn't want to give the public any information about their romance. So much of their lives had become a public spectacle, and they wanted to try and keep something that they could still call their own. When me and Rob were together, we did not have an example to go by. So much was taken from us that, in trying to control one aspect, we were just like, "No, we will never talk about it. Never. Because it's ours." After news of the affair broke out, fans assumed they had called it quits. She publicly apologized to him, which was the first time she had confirmed their relationship to the media. The pair briefly got back together, but unfortunately it seemed like they couldn't get past Kristen's betrayal and permanently split in 2013. Sanders and his wife also subsequently divorced following this scandal. Kristen Stewart has never been just your average Hollywood starlet. She grew up with her parents in the film industry, and her interest in acting was sparked at a very young age. However, her roles in films weren't the typical characters that other girls her age were performing. Kristen took on the roles of tomboys, complex teenagers going through a dark time, and they were predominantly in dramatic movies. She didn't act as the preppy teenage girl in high school who was smiling and trendy. She was often the outcast and has pretty much been the same thing in real life. I think I've grown out of this, but I used to be really frustrated that because I didn't leap willingly into being at the center of a certain amount of attention, that it seemed like I was an asshole. The actress was often criticized for not smiling in photos on the red carpet, and was encouraged to be more feminine and girly. But Stewart never let the critics' opinions get to her. At the premiere of her breakout film, Panic Room with Jodie Foster, Kristen was just 11 years old. She was so nervous that a photographer asked her to calm down. "What you don't understand," she told him, "is that I actually can't open my hands." Kristen admitted to having such crippling anxiety that it was affecting every aspect of her life. When it came to the affair with Sanders, she never felt like she could tell her side of the story because she didn't want to seem like an attention seeker and make excuses for what had happened. It wasn't until years later that she chose to share her story. "I lit my universe on fire and I watched it burn." Speaking very candidly, it was a really traumatic period in my early 20s that kickstarted something in me that was a bit more feral. I was constantly anxious. If I didn't know how something was going to turn out, I would make myself ill or just be locked up or inhibited in a way that was really debilitating. Perhaps all the pressure from being in the Twilight films, which quickly became one of the world's most popular movies of all time, put the actress in a position where she felt like she had no control over her life. She admitted that during that time, she was always being told what to do, what to say, how to behave, and on top of it all, she couldn't have a normal relationship with the man that she loved because they were constantly followed by paparazzi and written about in the media. There's no way we can understand how Kristen must have felt during that time in her life. Turning herself into a person who betrayed the one she loved was the ultimate form of self-sabotage, and instead of being asked how she felt, Stewart was immediately bashed and shamed by the public. We lived in a different time then, and you know what I mean? I feel like the slut-shaming that went down was so absurd. After the backlash and the hate that was thrown at her from all directions, the actress decided to show Hollywood the proverbial finger, and she was no longer going to mold herself into the cookie-cutter shape that the world was expecting her to be. She decided to channel her energy into more independent films, rather than big blockbuster studio films. She wanted to focus her craft and talent as an actress on films that were more out of the box, and didn't want to be weighed down by the pressures of highly publicized movies. "I want so badly to expose myself. I want to be understood. I want to be seen. And I want to do that in the rawest, purest, most naked way that I can." Stewart went on to have relationships with a few women like Alicia Cargile for 2 years, which marked the first time that the actress chose to open up about her sexuality.
Why would I simplify something very complex just in order for you to feel more comfy? It's I don't want to diminish this like cool thing, which is like discovering yourself and your sexuality and like how that changes. Like, yeah. Why would you box that up? Yeah.
Rather than put herself in a box and define herself, she believes herself to be more fluid when it comes to the people that she dates. And even though she's dated women, she's still attracted to men. Right now, Stewart is in a relationship with screenwriter Dylan Meyer, and they seem to be completely besotted with one another. She finally feels like she can be open about her date and hold hands in public with the one she loves without judgment. She even feels like Dylan could be the one. The actress has put the Twilight films along with the affair behind her. She finally feels like she has control over her own life, her own image, and she can be unapologetically herself. She's become far more outspoken in interviews and showing the world the side of her personality that they've never seen before.
As always, we're very eager to see your opinion in the comments section below. And do tell us which topic we should cover next. Behind-the-scenes dramas of your favorite shows? Why did this seemingly perfect couple break up? How come this Hollywood hottie is still alone? Who holds the title of the most fan-friendly celebrity? Make your voice heard, and we at Rumour Juice will make sure that you never get bored. Subscribe to our channel, and don't forget to tell your friends how cool we are.